Hi, my name is Jessica White, and I'm an environmental health specialist working for the Arkansas Department of Health. And today I'm really excited to talk to your community about the benefits and limitations of organic and local food. So, thank you so much for being here today and willing to listen to my presentation. So this is just a brief overview of what I want to cover in my presentation. I want to talk about what is considered organic and give examples of the types of food, the benefits of eating organic, as well as the limitations of eating organic, and then kind of move into what is considered local, along with examples of local foods, and then move into the benefits of eating locally as well as the limitations of eating locally, and then just kind of follow up with a brief summary of everything that we talk about. So, starting with organic foods, in the US, to be considered organic, crops must be grown without synthetic pesticides, bioengineered genes or GMOs, petroleum based fertilizers, or sewage sludge based fertilizers. And what all these things are basically chemicals or things that they're trying to keep out of the foods to make sure that they're as natural and safe as possible. And what synthetic pesticides are man-made substances used to kill other organisms like insects or fungi or things like that. And GMOs are foods that are genetically altered. And normally this is to help plants in a conventional farming environment become more resistant to pesticides or to produce a substance that might help them kill insects. And so they're trying to keep GMOs out of organic foods. And petroleum based fertilizers are man made products that kind of have petroleum or other fossil fuels within the fertilizer, and so that's not allowed in organic farming based products. And then sewage sludge based fertilizers are fertilizers made with components of wastewater treatment. And so what happens is the sewage sludge is treated, dried out, added to a landfill, and then applied to crops for fertilizer. So none of these things are allowed in organic or allowed to be used in organic foods. And so, for organic foods produced from livestock, for them to be considered organic, they must have access to things such as outdoor space and organic feed. And this is to just ensure that the animals have things like clean housing, healthy diet, and they are able to graze freely in an outdoor space and get exercise and just have an optimal living environment that's just conducive to healthy living. The organic feed is given to the animals just to ensure that there are no hormones or GMOs included in the food that they are eating, and they cannot be given products such as antibiotics, growth hormones, or animal byproducts, and this is just to help prevent disease such as antibiotic resistant bacteria or even mad cow disease that can sometimes be at an increased risk if animals are given things like animal byproducts. So, moving on into different examples of types of organic foods, there is often a seal that you can look for when shopping for foods to see if something is organic or not, and it's pictured in this slide, and it'll say USDA organic. Now, if something is 100% organic, it's often a single ingredient organic food, meaning it only has one ingredient in it, and that whole thing is organic. And things that will be listed as this include things like vegetables, eggs, meat, and fruits. If something is 95% organic, it could also have this seal on it, and this might be a multi-ingredient food, meaning that all of the ingredients within that food are organic. And if something is 70% organic, it could say something like made with organic. And this can also be a multi-ingredient food, and an example of this could be a breakfast cereal that is made with organic oats. And if something is less than 70% organic, it might not be labeled organic at all, but it could indicate separate ingredients within that specific food that are organic. Some of the benefits of eating organic include the fact that organic foods have a few more nutrients, such as things like antioxidants or omega-3 fatty acids. And antioxidants are things that help protect cells from damage caused by oxidative stress. And oxidative stress are things like sunlight or cigarette smoke or pollution that can damage cells. And a study showed that there is a 50% increase in omega-3 fatty acids in organic foods, and these fatty acids are ones that the body cannot make on its own, and so it's important to get those from your diet. And usually things like meats, dairy, and egg products can help you obtain these fatty acids. And when you consume these fatty acids, it helps to decrease your risk for cardiovascular disease. So another benefit of eating organic food is that it's more fresh because there are no preservatives included in the making of these foods, and that there are a lower amount of pesticide residues. So the National Research Council did a study in 1993 in which they took children and measured the level of pesticides before they ate organic food and then after they ate organic foods for 5 days. So before they ate organic foods, they were able to detect pesticides in their bodies, and after they ate organic food for 5 days, they were not able to detect any levels of pesticides. And so that is an interesting study, and it kind of just showed the effects of eating organic foods on pesticide levels. Another benefit of eating organic food is the environmental impact. You see pollution reduction, water conservation, and a reduction of soil erosion and an increase in soil fertility. And so just because of the decrease in chemicals and the amount that is leached into the environment, it's not able to contaminate nearby water sources or land used or near farming. So now that we've discussed the benefits of eating organically, it's also important to discuss the limitations of eating organically. One of the big factors is that oftentimes it's more expensive to eat organic foods. A study showed a 10% to a 40% increase in price to purchase organic foods. And this can be an important factor to consider because it's already a financial barrier for people to eat healthy, and so when given the choice to purchase organic versus non-organic food, that can definitely be a factor. Another limitation may be a shorter shelf or storage life, meaning that the food may go bad more quickly. This can be due to the fact there are no preservatives in organic food versus non-organic food. A limited supply may also be a hindrance for people, meaning there's not as many places that sell organic items, or there may not be as big of a selection in grocery stores, or even as many grocery stores that carry organic items, so that can be hard as well. It also takes longer to produce organic crops and produce compared to conventional farming, because only certain methods and substances can be used, and it can also be very labor intensive, whereas an organic farmer might have to pull weeds to get the weeds out of the garden. A conventional farmer may be able to just use like a chemical or something else to help hurry along the process. There's also a limitation to this because a lot of people think that, it's a lot more nutritious to eat organically and organic produce, but this claim is not very supported by scientifically backed studies. There is no significant difference in carbohydrates, vitamins, or mineral content in organic food other than what was mentioned before with the antioxidants and the omega-3 fatty acids. So now that we've kind of talked about organic foods and some of the benefits and limitations, I'd like to transition to talking about local foods. And the definition of local foods is direct or intermediated marketing of food to consumers that is produced and distributed in a limited geographic area. Some examples of local foods include local businesses buying from a farm that grows produce within the area. Another example can include a farm within the region selling produce at a farmer's market. And then another example can be a CSA, or a community supported agriculture, which this is kind of a unique idea that I hadn't heard of before, but it's where community members and families go into a contract with a local farm owner in which they invest to receive a certain amount of produce based on the amount of money they invested. And so they do so with the understanding that if the farm does really well that year, they may get, more produce. If it doesn't do as well, they may get less. And then this is kind of the contract they agree to with the local farmer. So this is actually a picture of a CSA in Michigan that I found that I thought was really neat and kind of a good example of a local food idea. Some of the benefits of eating produce from a locally grown farm includes the fact that they may be more flavorful because the produce are picked when ripe, and that they are grown seasonally, meaning that different produce can usually be grown at certain times of the year based upon climate and geographic area. So that can be a good benefit of a locally grown farm that produces different varieties of vegetables and produce. Nutritional value is increased, meaning that this is more specific kind of like to the route that the vegetable takes. So in conventional farming, it's kind of grown on a large scale farm, and then it might be sent to a center for distributing, and then the store, and then it kind of makes it to your table once you go to the store and buy it. But compared to a locally grown farm, you kind of know where the farm's at, and then you might go to the farm and pick it up, or the farmer's market or something like that, and buy it, and then it kind of goes straight to your table, and you don't have to go through all of these other steps. And so the thinking behind that is that there's less nutrition and nutrients lost in route, and you will have kind of a more direct route to getting the vegetable from the farm to the table, and less nutrients is lost en route, and you'll be able to eat it quickly once you get it. And so another benefit would be that it supports the local economy. So for you to go and buy vegetables from your local farmer, you kind of put money back into the community, and that money can be reinvested into local businesses within your own community, and you can kind of support each other in that way. Another point is that consumer knowledge of how food is grown. So you can know where your food is grown, who grows your food. You can ask questions about what types of vegetables are grown, and you have access to more information about what you're eating, where it's from, and that kind of thing is important to know. So preservation of genetic diversity. So small local farms can choose different crop varieties based on the best flavor, based upon having a long season to harvest, based upon consumer requests, different things like that. They kind of have a lot of say in the decision-making process, whereas kind of the larger farms choose more based on likelihood to ripen or the ability for it to survive packing or a long shelf life. And so local farms can preserve genetic diversity a little bit better, and the ability to protect open space and environment. So spending money and investing in local farms kind of shows community support in the idea of open land, and makes farmers a little bit less likely to sell their land for developmental reasons. So after discussing some of the benefits of eating locally, I'd like to discuss some of the limitations of eating locally as well. There can be a decrease in food variety, just meaning that because if you buy locally, you might be restricted to eating things that are only naturally able to grow in the area in which you live in. So there might also be some restriction in climate, because if the weather is only a certain condition in the area that you live in, you may not be able to support a local farm because of the weather, such as if a community in a desert area or an Arctic area is not able to support a local farm, and they might not be able to feed their community if they're trying to look to this model. Another concern is food safety. So because it's a local model, they're not as regulated and don't have to go through a lot of the government regulations, so there might be breakouts of things like E. coli, salmonella, or norovirus, which are all different GI disturbance and food poisoning type infections. E. coli and salmonella are both bacterial infections, and norovirus is a viral infection, and this is actually a picture of the E. coli bacteria. So these are just some considerations to think about for eating locally. So we've discussed a lot of things today so far, and I just wanted to give a brief summary of everything we went over. Organic food is usually grown without the use of synthetic chemicals and with access to an optimal environment for natural growth using specific farming techniques. Some of the major benefits include increased amounts of certain nutrients, fresher food, and a positive environmental impact. Some of the limitations include cost, decreased shelf life and supply, and an increased time to produce it. Local food is usually produced and sold within a regional area. Some of the major benefits include increased nutritional value and taste, increased economic support, and increased knowledge about food production. Limitations include decreased food variety and concerns about food safety. I just want to thank you for listening to my presentation. I really appreciate everybody being willing to listen to what I have to say about this topic. Thank you and have a great day.